is a decade behind. That is the truth. And you cannot afford to be back. The perception of Africa as being a friendly business environment is just a risk aversion. There's no environment without its own unique risk. We have our challenges. If we don't recognize those challenges, it's another thing. We recognize those challenges and we are working at it. And we are providing the best environment for you to invest. Today, you can move your money in and out as you wish. Please, forget those dark days of military incursion in our politics. It's gone, and I believe it's gone forever. You will have the best return on investment if you invest in Africa and particularly in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Very well stressed out as well. Bonjour, Son Excellence Ouattara. We're going to move on with you now. If you want to give us also the investors here who will be coming to Africa an area where they should invest in your country, His Excellency Ouattara, please give us some sectors which will be lucrative or reasons why you think so, and then go on to tell us about the value chains which you would see in your country. His Excellency Ouattara, he's got a microphone. Thank you. C'est déjà allumé, je pense, Son Excellence.
Do you hear me? Can you repeat your question, Madam?
Yes. So we want to know if the investments have to come to Africa in your country, Côte d'Ivoire. In what sectors should we focus the investments, and where would you see some value chains which we can basically even shift from Germany and take to Côte d'Ivoire?
Well, thank you. Merci beaucoup, Madame. Je voudrais d'abord saluer le chancelier, Olaf Scholz, pour son hospitalité, remercier le peuple allemand aussi, et dire que la Côte d'Ivoire participe au compact pour la 5e fois. Je considère que nous sommes privilégiés d'avoir eu ces opportunités dans ce beau pays. Et je voudrais indiquer que nous avons des relations très fortes avec l'Allemagne et la République fédérale. Et nous sommes heureux, surtout parlant au secteur privé ici, de constater que le nombre d'entreprises allemandes en Côte d'Ivoire a quasiment triplé en 5 ans. C'est dire que si je dois faire un discours, je crois qu'au secteur privé, je crois que c'est quasiment inutile, parce que vous connaissez tous les atouts de la Côte d'Ivoire, avec l'afflux des investissements et des entreprises allemandes en Côte d'Ivoire. En tout cas, je me réjouis de présenter les atouts de mon pays et de dire que la Côte d'Ivoire est un petit pays de 30 millions d'habitants, mais qui est marqué par sa stabilité. Et nous avons également la paix et la sécurité. Bon, dans ce monde où quand même la question sécuritaire est difficile, je crois que c'est un environnement où les investisseurs peuvent se sentir totalement en sécurité, le pays est en paix, et dire que c'est un pays aussi qui respecte les règles, le droit, les droits des personnes, les droits des entreprises, et ceci est très important pour les investisseurs privés. Nous avons été félicités par les investisseurs en ce qui concerne la notation de notre pays, qui montre que c'est l'un des rares pays. Je crois que maintenant, avec le Maroc qui a une notation positive au niveau des marchés internationaux. Ceci s'explique par le cadre macroéconomique qui a été stable, une très bonne performance, un taux de croissance d'environ 7% par an depuis 2012, avec des investissements sociaux importants, notamment dans le domaine de l'énergie. Le domaine de l'énergie, parce qu'évidemment les industries ont besoin d'énergie, pas seulement les consommateurs, les citoyens. À donner un exemple, nous avions un taux de production d'électricité de 40% en 2011. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes quasiment à 98%. Comme je le disais au chancelier hier, nous avons tous les villages de plus de 500 habitants ont de l'électricité. Et ceci est important pour, bien sûr, les industries, les populations, surtout les populations rurales. Avoir de l'électricité dans un village.
At the German initiatives, it is really important to me and dear to my heart to have diversity in our economy. I believe that we do need an opening in our sectors because we do have to open up to, many investors, and I believe that the German businessmen will have major opportunities. In Cote d'Ivoire, we also are of the opinion that protection of investors are of utmost importance. 10 to 15 years ago, the judiciary was not that objective. It has changed because we are now in a situation where we have rule of law, where there is respect for the protection of investors' assets. So at the same time, we do have a currency union as well, a currency that is coupled to the euro, and we are part of ECOWAS as well. So we have a major market, from Nigeria close by, and that is of benefit to us as well. So we want to continue progress and advance like that. We have major ports as well. They are very efficient and they are known to be working efficiently. And here too, we have major investment opportunities. Of course, I'm not going to take up so much of your time, but there are my ministers here, two finance minister, for example, in order for your investors to actually talk B2B and also to attract more German investors. So 3 visits we have already received, very fertile and positive visits. So also from Germany, from the EU, and of course we would like to strengthen this cooperation. So of course also in terms of infrastructure, I'm not going to go into detail on the infrastructure. Lots of things are being produced in Cote d'Ivoire, and as you know, we are main producer of cocoa. So whenever you enjoy a cup of cocoa, especially in the morning, just don't forget that you think of us in Cote d'Ivoire, because 50% of probability is that you are going to that your cup of cocoa comes from Cote d'Ivoire. then, of course, cashew nuts, banana, another product, and palm oil. We are also second in line. So we have a long list of products on offer. And of course, value-added chains or value chains. That's also very important. And that's important for us to do too. So what we would like to see is that German businesses come here in order to have cocoa butter and chocolate to be produced, and also then to export that to Europe. So, Madam Orban, I'm not going to take too long, but it's a stable country. Mine is a stable country, an open country, a country that tries and hopes for German investors to keep up their interest in Côte d'Ivoire. On the 13th of January, as you know, is going to be a meeting of African nations. And I told the Chancellor yesterday, Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire, etc. Well, we are the champions. I come from Senegal and Côte d'Ivoire, so Senegal plus Côte d'Ivoire. I would like to have them together. Okay, so well, let's bet on that, on the German investors who will get to your country. And so please, come to us.
But the fact that you already enjoy a lot of economic growth in your country, I'm just checking to see that you have your headset on. Good. So I want to first ask you, how did you create this extremely favorable environment to enjoy this trade and investment in your country? So from the unique selling point to the value chains, and how you created this atmosphere which attracts the investors. Thank you. The microphones should be on. Yes, they are.
Merci, Excellence, Monsieur le Président et chef de gouvernement, Mesdames et...
So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, I would like to say thank you first and foremost to Chancellor Scholz for your hospitality, and I would like to take the opportunity to say thank you also to address this August meeting. So first of all, as to a question regarding value-added chains. Well, let's start with the German companies. I can confirm this. The German businesses are dynamic businesses, and they can definitely take up the opportunities to integrate themselves into value chains. And together with the Federal Republic of Germany, we have seen that we had a sixfold increase from 2015 to 2022 in our trade volume. So there was major investment uprise in Morocco, and since 2020 there has been a rise in exchange of trading of about 30%, 1.6 billion euros in just one quarter. So this is just to say how big that dynamic is. So Germany, Morocco, in terms of this investment and, the value chains, allow me to mention in particular three sectors. Automotive sector, we do have automotive producers. In the northern or medium part of Morocco, we developed a cluster, an ecosystem, if you so wish, And the German businesses are very much present there. And integration, well, 40 to 60 to 70% of those car manufacturers that we're addressing here, they have been integrated there. And yes, car manufacturing is something that we've already seen in the past. But as to the future, we already talked about hydrogen and prospects for such developments. Yes, there is an opportunity to produce green hydrogen. We've talked about that with Germany also before, and we have wonderful conditions: wind, sun, solar radiation. We can produce all kinds of renewable energies and transform the economy, but also, of course, the EU is actually called upon. Germany is first and foremost called upon to assist in the technologies and the equipment in order to then get green hydrogen off the ground. And another point that I would like to flag. King Mohammed VI, in his last speech on 6 November, talked a lot about the African space, 23 countries, a very important space for development, for value added that is being produced. And there is still a logistical lack. If you so wish, we need ports, we need machinery, we need desalination plants. So we need an industrial offering, so to speak. His Majesty has invited the 23 countries to actually have that position take off. Industry and industry equipment. So, of course, we also need to deal with issues in the Sahel zone for it to open up, for this space to also be used to have access to the coast. So, cars, hydrogen in future, we have everything on offer there in Morocco, and we ask the German investors to actually take a closer look at that offering, and then strategically speaking, regional integration. These are the three sectors that I wanted to address. Very important, and of course you also know the commitment of the king in Morocco. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Macky Sall, ich möchte auch eine Frage.
Where we best invest in your country, and then when you add the value chains to it, we'll add one more thing which we heard from investors, the infrastructure. So we move from the unique selling point, we go to the value chains, and then we end up with how you're enjoying the investments in the country, and touch a little bit on the infrastructure of your country. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Permettez-moi de saluer et de remercier.
Allow me to thank the Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany for his keen interest in Africa. This is something that he directly experienced through his various visits to our continent. But he has also developed a vision about this relationship with Africa, between Germany and Africa. Africa, as you mentioned earlier, those are 54 countries. From the north to the south, from the east to the west. It also represents 1,300,000,000 inhabitants with important markets, growing middle class with up to 400, pretty soon almost 400 million consumers, so an important market. We need to strengthen the results and build on the results of the compact of the G20 with Africa announced by Germany in 2017. And I'm very, very pleased that we've been a member since the very beginning. Now we need to see what are the bottlenecks that we need to resolve in order to strengthen investment in Africa. Investment in our trade, globally speaking. So if we look individually at our countries, each and every one of them have comparative advantages, but also common constraints. The first constraint is the price of credit. If somebody wants to invest in Africa, they are always confronted with the same problem, which is the perception of risks attached to financing. And this is linked also to the ranking of the African countries that are indistinguishable. You have Africa, South Africa, whatever, and then you just simply rank these countries. And therefore the insurance premiums become extremely high. On the other hand, if we then call on the export credit facilities such as the Hermes guarantees issued by the German government, then credit becomes very, very high, and then you have insurance premiums that can reach up to 15%. So that is a hindrance when it comes to investment and commerce between Africa and Europe. And globally speaking, this puts brakes on commercial activity in Africa. Now, on such a vast continent that represents 13 million square kilometers, you could to go to Cape Town in South Africa from Dhaka, 9 flight hours. To come to Germany, it was only 6 hours. You can see the difference. And I don't know if you were to travel from Cairo to the Cape, it might even be 12 hours flight. So it's a vast continent that has to be built up. In order to build it up, you need a global mobilization between Africans and other countries. And we believe that all our partners have a place in Africa because we need to build railways, for example. And that is part also of the struggle against climate change. We need a railway system. So we have a huge potential taking this sole issue. Germany, we know, is the world champion when it comes to efficiency in terms of engines and propulsion systems that are built here. So what we need is to work with you. Africa has made the effort to set up a program to develop infrastructures. And we have defined priority issues in the sector, such as, for example, transport, railway systems, energy, sustainable and renewable energy with the dam in Inga and other resources, very diversified. We have obviously solar power. We have a lot of solar power in Africa, so we have all of these energy resources. But the problem, the stumbling block is always the price of credit, because we need to work to lift these bottlenecks, to do away with these bottlenecks. And President Ouattara is absolutely right. Côte d'Ivoire is a very, very welcoming, beautiful country, but I'm sure that given that they're so welcoming, they will now leave us win, or let us win the Africa Cup of Nations. So anyway, thank you very much. So we are open for business, and we are looking forward to more and more German companies also coming to Senegal. And on this note, you're welcome. Africa is open. Senegal is an open country for all investments with no restriction whatsoever. And allow me to add, there will be no exclusion. there will be no exclusivity as well. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
You touched on the efficiency of the Germans. You talked about a little bit on the risks of investments. We will get to that when we get to the next part, but I'll turn my attention to His Excellency Olaf Scholz. We've heard from the heads of state. You have had 3 visits already to Africa. You've been able to interact with the companies investing, taking other investments there. I'll just give you some time to respond to what you've heard so far, and then tell us what your experience has been on the African continent following the message we have got today. Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Thank you. So it's very important to understand that so many developments are taking place in all these countries. And I think this conference and also the whole compact with Africa is necessary to help business to understand that this is a good business place and things are changing and are going to a better direction. And doing so, I think we will benefit all together from this, because growth in Africa means also growth for the whole planet in the end, and it's then also a chance for business to expand, because you are not restricted to where you are coming from and where you are used to invest. And I think making this feasible for Africa is the biggest challenge for the next time. And from my perspective, I think it is one aspect of politics that should be followed by the European Union and especially by Germany. So this is why my personal investment in doing so and in discussing these topics is that big, and I will continue to do so. It is not just for doing it once. It is something that we should continue to do the next years, and it has a high priority. What is also necessary that we understand the circumstances, and this means that we are looking at questions for development that have not been raised in the international debate. So from my perspective, I think if we go to minerals, for instance, they should be not just exploited. There should be, for instance, the first refinement done in those countries, which is good for economic growth over there, but it's also a good chance for many, many others to have a more diversified economy. And this is the same when we go look at, for instance, agriculture and fertilizers. My perspective was it is not very good to understand that so many of the fertilizers that are used in the world are just produced in so rare places. Mm-hmm. And changing this would give economic stability to many countries in Africa, but also in the South of America and Asian countries. But it will also create more chances for growth. So 2 topics which I would like to mention. In the end, it's about the business environment, and the business community assembled here understands exactly that the most important aspect for a good business environment is the rule of law, that you can rely on what you agreed, and getting progress in these fields and doing the necessary economic reforms is also key. My expectation is that with Compact with Africa and with all the debates that are taking place in these countries, we are having a very promising look to the future.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. So things are changing. We've heard from His Excellency Scholz, things are changing. And usually, you can't only tell something or tell somebody that something is working well. You look for an example which is working in the African continent, and you try to show the others, why not do it like Siemens? So we turned our attention to Siemens and talked to Mrs. Sabine Dalomo, who is the chairperson here, also representing Africa Verein, and you're the vice chair also of SAFRI. We're glad to have you here on the panel to tell us your experience. How did this long-term work come to be for Siemens, and what is your future perspective? We've heard there are risks. We've heard the compact with Africa could be a decade late, but you have already been on the ground with Siemens. Just share your experience with others who would want to do the same. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And first of all, I'm really pleased to be here today, and also thanks to the German government to have the 4th Compact with Africa initiative being launched and revitalized One important part is that we see that more countries are onboarded, and this is fantastic to see as well, because it shows that also the African continent becomes more attractive, because these countries which are participating, as the Chancellor lined out, will embrace rule of law, which is important for us as business to do business, because we want to grow the countries and we want to grow the economy. Maybe short facts about Siemens. We are since more than 160 years on the African continent. Myself, I'm since 20 years in South Africa, and I must say it's the first time ever in Africa really comes to the forefront of a viable business place for European companies. And all the presidents as well as the Chancellor highlighted exactly these opportunities. But when we look at Africa overall and why, not so many are yet there, is it's also the perspective we have. Because when we think about the coverage about Africa, you mentioned in your speech, Sanchez Holt, that we have to explain that it's not 50 countries. It's sometimes, for us in Africa, clear it's a whole host of countries. But when we look at the coverage to Africa, it's rather a blind spot. We talk about crisis and war and all kind of negative things, but we don't talk about the vibrant economic environment we find in many of the countries, particularly when we think about youth. I mean, the young people in Africa are just so amazing. They are so innovative because they need to find solutions for their daily life. I can give you an example. We have started a Girls Can Code Academy together with UN Women Germany and Allianz. We have taken 625 girls this year in May into a learnership program from Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, Senegal and South Africa. And these young girls, after 6 months, have shown such a talent that for 25% of them we have already employment secured when they are finished with their studies. And this is just an amazing possibility we see on the continent. When I look at specifically the advanced industrialization on the continent, and that relating to the fact that you need to have a kind of ecosystem. When we work as Siemens in countries like in Egypt, where we have high-speed trains we sell state-of-the-art. We want to work with an ecosystem we are used to in our normal home markets. And so therefore, attractiveness to small and medium companies for a contribution into project of Siemens, this is absolutely vital for us. And therefore, we have had a recently published study between the Africa Association and KPMG, where we surveyed companies, and 2/3 of these companies say that they see potential in Africa mainly because of the size of the market, and that is underpinned by the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. This gives me, for Siemens, a lot of hope, because we will be able to find these medium-sized and small companies which we will need for our ecosystem to flourish and to have a prosperous solution implemented in the countries. Because when we go to Egypt or to Ghana or South Africa, we implement state-of-the-art technology. We don't use things which you can't sell anywhere else anymore. And that is a great advantage for the African continent, because largely that will be possible to leapfrog into the next level of digital technology for their infrastructure projects. And so we're very keen and see plenty of opportunities on the continent. But I just want to give you a few numbers based on the study we did, what I found quite interesting. That out of the study, 81% of the companies surveyed said in the next 5 years they will have more interest to come to Africa, and 78% say that they will see as well in the next 5 years more revenues to become from Africa. Disappointing at this point in time is that the foreign direct investment to Africa of Germany is currently about 1%. And on a scale from 1 to 100, there is still a lot of space to the upper level to increase foreign direct investment into the continent. If we look from the Africa Association and from the German business specifically, again, looking at medium-sized companies, we have seen through the economic diplomacies by the Chancellor, but also by the President and many of the ministers, which help through their travels to shape the image of Africa to a better one than we might have in mind when we talk about the African continent. But when we see we have already improved credit guarantees, but what we also would like to see specifically investment guarantees for small and medium enterprises, to covering as well some of the political risk. Because not everybody has the possibility to do a deep dive about the settings in various countries. And so helping these countries and the companies to find their footing, to find it attractive, and President Sall mentioned the cost of capital to make investments commercial viable is one of the biggest stumbling blocks we currently see by the increased activity specifically of medium-sized companies in Africa. From us, we will continue to be in Africa. We are in for the long haul, as we have been already. We want to make sure that modern technology will be the game changer for Africa in infrastructure, rail, road, water, electricity, and health. And I'm very happy to change the African outlook in these areas. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Dalomo. So we've heard the AFTA mentioned a couple of times, the African trade amongst our countries. Do you think, His Excellency Tinubu, we're at a good point where we can say, even amongst the Africans, we're already doing what it takes to trade within our nations? You having an economy which is huge and a huge population, would you say we are already in that line of trading with each other? Yes, no, or what are the impediments?
I say yes, because the promotional effort of the Chancellor as a visit to Africa recently is equally an indication that Europe is serious to do business with Africa. The good governance promotion in all sectors of our economy in Africa, and stability of governance in Nigeria in particular, I would say, it is an indicator that, yes, changes are at the door, not far off. Equally, we should continue to understand the data of Africa. When you look at Nigeria alone, the vehicular density of that country, a call for a sincere commitment to assembly plants, various auto parts, automotive parts, and all that. You can invest. There's no way, if good governance in your corporate body is employed, there's no way you'll lose money. That is certain. Yes, on Siemens, I agree that near obsolete equipment is not the answer, it's not the solution to what we needed in Africa. The critical path to success is to be able to leapfrog from where we are today to the next generation of development. And we are opening the door for all of that. The energetic population of youth and well-educated population that is available is enough to attract. In every business, human resources is a great capital incentive for investors. Yes, rule of law is a must, because business, yes, may be cowardly if you are bogged down in legal bureaucratic problems, you might not have the necessary investment that you expect. We are reforming the rule of law. We are adhering to that, and we definitely will continue to promote the opportunity given today by Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, His Excellency Tinubu. And to you, His Excellency Ouattara, now we're having this German investments which will and are coming into the country. We're seeing the change at the door, like His Excellency Tinubu said. But we do know other countries are already investing strongly in African nations without calling the countries here. What would you say the German companies can do or learn from others who have already penetrated the African market very strongly?
Thank you very much. I think for Côte d'Ivoire, we have a completely open country in terms of trade and investment with all countries. As Macky Sall said, with no exclusivity, we have total openness. And what I'd like to stress is that actually the first start should be trade and financial transactions among African countries themselves. Talking to my brother Tinubu, for example, Nigeria with 250 million people, clearly trade with Nigeria is very important for us all in West Africa. I often tell President Tinubu that if Nigeria goes well, in West Africa we will go very well. And so I count on him to continue to open further the Nigerian market. I'm at ease to say this because Côte d'Ivoire, the first trading partner of Côte d'Ivoire is Nigeria. We have our oil come from Nigeria, and in terms of products that we could export to Nigeria, clearly ECOWAS gives an opportunity to increase further trade with this important country. But for Côte d'Ivoire, we have to cross, to go to Nigeria, we have to cross Ghana, Togo, Benin before going there. So actually, for the German enterprises, what I've noted is the quality and the performance of the small business sector in Germany. And I've always pleaded that we do want middle-sized enterprises in Germany because everyone knows the quality of their performance and also their efficiency. So clearly I'd like to appeal again to the German enterprisers here to consider that Africa is a vast market, but in terms of training, also our experience is that the German enterprises have a step ahead in terms of absorbing the local or the nationals of the country in terms of training them for them to take over in the production process. So clearly, I think I'm very optimistic about the increasing share of Germany in our market, in our trade, and in our GDP. Thank you.
Thank you so much, His Excellency Ouattara. So, His Excellency Scholz, as we slowly start getting to wrapping up this panel, which you so gladly had here, while in Africa and also in view of the people you've spoken, so the investors on the ground, what would your message be today to the investors in the hall from a key experience of someone who has spoken to the investors there? What can we pass on to an investor sitting right now in the hall and talk to him directly about your trip to Africa and why he and his company should come with us the next time?
I think the most important aspect would be not to underestimate the challenge, the potential of the people in Africa. And going around, learning about the countries is also key, because it gives you the chance to see that this is not just a place where you can sell goods to. It's also a very good place for foreign investment, direct investment. It's also a society you will find where people are trying to be at the forefront of developments we have, may it be in some aspects of technology, and not underestimate the potential of the people in Africa is, I think, the most important advice I could give to those who are interested in business.
Very good. Thank you so much, His Excellency. Sabine Dalomo from Siemens, also give one key sentence to the audience regarding Siemens' investment in Africa, doing trade in Africa. Just one key message for the audience to take with them today.
Well, look, I mean, the African continent in general has a lot of opportunities, but if you think about the activities around climate change, which we need to do as a global society, the African continent is the place to invest and is the place to develop new technologies, because, as mentioned before, some of the Africans have already solutions we in Europe might not be able to find out anymore, because we are not exposed to these kind of adverse scenarios. And so therefore, working with African ideas can also a great benefit for the European market. And so that's my 5 cents.
Thank you. So working with, I took the word with, because we said the last time we don't want to talk about Africa and Africans, we want to talk with the Africans. So I'll take that word. But let's give over the chance to His Excellency Macky Sall to tell us in his words how we want to make an appel here today with all the media present and the investors, so that as today is the time where things are changing, like His Excellency Scholz said, we take this and go on a higher level with it. And your wish also for the next compact with Africa, what we will be giving as results of today. His Excellency Macky Sall.
Merci beaucoup, Madame. Il était très important.
Thank you very much. It was important to recall that this is a compact with Africa and not a compact about Africa. So working with Africa means working hand in hand with Africa. So we stated that, and the Chancellor mentioned that as well. So I would like to appeal to the investors who would like to do business in Africa. I think you need a kind of accompaniment, if you so wish, also on the part of the federal government, with credit lines, for example, that need to be opened. So there is major demand in all energy sectors, economy, medical products, many hospitals, for example, that need further modern equipment, or car manufacturing. Also, Tesla is already there, and also the railways and the power supply. All of these sectors, all the other economic sectors in our countries also need the implementation of measures that are dealing with debt relief. So what we need in this regard is having and increasing access to the existing markets on the basis of sustainable criteria for us to be able to invest as much as possible and have trade as much as possible. Thank you very much.
Regards to His Majesty. We extend our regards. I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for this first panel, stopping at 11 o'clock and right on time. Sabine Dalomo, His Excellency Macky Sall, His Excellency Olaf Scholz, His Excellency Tinubu, His Excellency Ouattara, and His Excellency Akanok. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all. In 30 seconds, we are going to dismiss the panel. So if you want to take your pictures, you have 30 seconds. Thank you all so much, Your Excellency. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. Anyone. You're welcome. And as His Excellencies regain their seats, this is an round of applause for the message we've received today. I'll kindly request my team to change the names on the panel, the glasses of water as well, as we get ready for the second panel, which shall be headed by His Excellency Dr. Habeck. So while we get the water changed, the name tags changed, the panelists will get ready for a second panel, which will be headed by His Excellency Dr. Robert Habeck.
Who will do Togo if the president is not around? I mean, Kenya is here. Okay, but then Kenya is...
Information is power, information is security, information is knowledge. On Labour Lens, we believe that working people around the world have real questions of their own. They want to know how the world of work operates, what it means to the employer of labor, how policies affect workers in the workplace. On Labour Lens, I ensure we engage effectively the organized labor, organized private sector and government to get out of them information workers are in need of. I am Sharon Ijason, asking questions that make you get sense of the workplace.
When shippers groan under the weight of ceaseless charges that tend to throw them off balance in the sector, Nigerian Shippers Council promptly comes to their rescue.
We know that we are achieving something.
Today, you now have a regulator.
To get justice done without the money for any charges.
It's Tidbit, the world's biggest container ship and the first to break the 24,000 TEU mark.
Allah Inland Drive port is born again. Finally, the eagle has landed.
It is initiatives like this that we want to encourage.
Join us for a smooth sail on your favorite maritime program, The Shipper, brought to you by Nigerian Shippers Council, Nigeria's port economic regulator.
Lagos is the most visited state in Africa as the fifth largest economy on the continent. Covering the state and its government is no mean feat, it's a busy beat. We go beyond the curtain of tapes to traveling far into the deep.
I want to thank the Lagos State government for the healthcare facility.
To bring stories that cut across all spectrums.
A greater Lagos shall be ours.
We tell you stories that define our collective well-being as Lagosians. I'm Adedoja Salamadini. I live in Lagos, inside Lagos.
Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Falani. Hope you had a great weekend. Okay, quite a number of things have been happening. The president is away. We've just been watching him on local television here in Germany. And even in our sub-region, in our region here in West Africa, serious election, serious political activity. Liberia, had its second round of elections, and we now have in Liberia a president-elect in the person of the former vice president to Madam Sirleaf Johnson, Joseph Boakai, 78, who is now the president-elect. Now, the interesting thing about this, and we'll come to that as soon as I've introduced my guest. My guest is a former ambassador, former Nigerian deputy permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Usman Sarki. Good morning to you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, sir. Good morning. It's a pleasure to join TVC program this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being available for us. I imagine a number of people will be quite optimistic and excited, perhaps, about the example that West Africa, indeed Africa, got in Liberia, where the president there, President George Weah, set an example for Africa in conceding victory to his opposition challenger, the former vice president of the country under, Madam Johnson Sirleaf. And the interesting thing about this is that it was such a narrow margin of victory. We are told that 50.9%, that is what the president-elect won by, to the incumbent president's 49.1%. I mean, that is the narrowest of margins. Yet, we have the report that President Weah, even before the completion of counting, had decided that there was no way he could make up the difference necessary to win. And before the official result, he had called, the president-elect, now president-elect, and had congratulated him. I thought that was a refreshing change for Africa. So I wanted to ask you, Mr. Ambassador, does this signify that a change is in the offing in Africa?
Well, thank you very much. Let me commend you for addressing this issue of election in West Africa and in Liberia in particular, which is one of the oldest independent countries in our region.
Indeed.
Just for the of your audience or the viewers, Liberia was established or became independent in 1860, exactly 100 years before Nigeria got her independence. So it is very interesting that today Liberia is living up to expectations in leading the democratic process in our region by actually denying the concept of coups, incessant coups, and other unauthorized, unconstitutional changes of government that seem to characterize the West African region, unfortunately. Liberia's election and the concession or conceding of the elections, the victory to the former Vice President Boakai is a turning point in the democratic advancement of our region. This is because Liberia may be a small country in terms of population, only about 9 million people, but whether it's a small country or large country, what matters is precedent, what matters is example, and what matters is integrity of the process. I have read the congratulatory messages sent by the United States Department of State, by the European Union, by African Union, and other organizations and partners. All of them pointed to the number one, the integrity and credibility of the electoral process. Secondly,
even President Tinubu, as head of ECOWAS, even our President Tinubu.
Yes, exactly. In fact, Aljuring Lele sent me personally the congratulatory message of Mr. President, which I thought is something very important in terms of the leadership position that he is holding today in ECOWAS as chairman of ECOWAS, and also his persistent and insistent echoing of rule of law, constitutionalism, and democratic process. And I think it's very important that Nigeria has taken the lead in congratulating both former President Weah and the incoming President Boakai, and congratulating the people of Liberia for this achievement. If we are to draw a parallel between Nigeria and Liberia, it will be what happened in 2015, when His Excellency President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, GCFR, graciously conceded to the incoming president who won the election, that is President Muhammadu Buhari, His Excellency GCFR. So in Nigeria, we have set a precedent, happily. But in other areas, I think what we need to do is to fine-tune and perfect our electoral process, number one, and number two, the way officials come into office. There is a lot of contention and disagreements in terms of the way people come to office, the election, the swearing in, and afterwards, you have appeal courts and other legal processes that either nullify or reverse or put into question the validity and integrity of both the process and the election themselves. So we need to, we are a big country, I allow that, but even big countries can learn some things from smaller countries. Indeed. So it is very important for INEC and for Nigerian politicians and especially political parties to borrow a leaf from what has happened in Liberia. Let us not be too arrogant and too full of ourselves that we cannot learn from other people. We must know that Liberia was established long before us, and now they are coming back to their senses in terms of having peaceful democratic transition in the country as the fundamental prerequisite, fundamental corollary to development, to peace and security, and to the progress of democracy. So I'm very happy about the turn of events. The Unity Party, UP, which was led by President-elect Boakai, and the conference, the CDC, that was led by George Weah, did not actually break into fights across the country. Only a few incidents were reported in about 4 or 5 provinces that led to minor injuries and hospitalizations of some people. Otherwise, the observer missions judged the elections across the board as fair, transparent, clean, peaceful, and with a lot of maturity. And I think it is very important for us to highlight this always, especially you in the media like TVC, for Nigerians to know that elections are not do or die affairs, and that people can win, people can lose. Political parties can win and lose, and yet the country must go on. So that is the lesson that we should learn from what has happened in Liberia.
Indeed. And President Weah, President George Weah himself, as I said earlier, and as you know, he had conceded even before the official declaration of results. And one is still surprised that such President Tinubu noted his statesmanship and his undiluted patriotism in conceding victory, because the margin was ever so narrow, 50.1%. So the other guy had 49 point, what is it now? 49.1%. So the president, our president, had commended this and noted that what President Weah has demonstrated is that the outcome of elections in West Africa need not lead to strife and unrest and all sorts of, anogogiri, interminable court cases. As you said, Liberia has had its problems, but it is still, I think, the oldest independent African country in Africa. And I think it rose up to the occasion this time around, and President Tinubu noted this in his congratulatory message.
Yes, exactly. I think, President Tinubu has a lot of work to do in actually advancing democracy in our region. You remember last week he was in Guinea-Bissau, and I think he has gone to that country 2 or 3 times in the course of his presidency. Guinea-Bissau is a fragile country in terms of the strength of its democracy, with a rested military and very active opposition. So his concern with Guinea-Bissau should actually be translated to other countries in West Africa, so that Nigeria's presence can balance the situation in those countries and indicate to them that we have their welfare at heart and mind, and we will do everything possible in order to defend their democracy and advance the interests of their people. Now, in Liberia, His Excellency President Tinubu has also taken the lead in congratulating the government and the country and the people. Now, George, you have referred to this very slim margin of the victory by Bokai. George, you remember it was the first round of elections was held on October 10th.
That's right.
And, according to the Liberian electoral law, is that you have recourse to a second run of election in the presidential election only. But in the parliamentary election, which also took place at the same time with the presidential election, about half of the Senate was re-elected. So it was first past the post as far as the Senate was concerned. But in the presidency, because there was no clear victory in the first round of October 10, they have to now hold the second round on November 14. And that was what happened. So President Weah read the sign. He did not have a clear majority in the first round as an incumbent president. And in the second round also, no matter how slim the margin was, he could not make the required 50% or more. And sagaciously, and I believe was in conclave with his advisors, they came to the understanding that their time was up, the game was up, that he should give up. And very manly, courageously, and in a sportsmanlike fashion, he came out even before the final collation and announcement of the results to congratulate Vice President-elect Bokai and conceded defeat. And I think that is the essence of democracy.
It is.
What we need to learn in Nigeria is for our political parties, first and foremost, to follow their own rules, their own constitutions, to abide by those, and then to follow the electoral law in Nigeria. If that is done, divisive utterances, the recourse to courts regularly, sometimes even with very on flimsy excuses and grounds, can be avoided. Here I have to point out that a lot of unnecessary dust was raised around the victory of President Bola Tinubu, which should not have actually been so if we are better organized in terms of our elections and electoral processes. I do hope all of us, both the ruling party, the opposition parties, and the general populace in Nigeria will learn something from that. That is, not to take democracy as something solid and unbreakable. Democracy can be broken, democracy can be brought to its knees by discontent, by disgruntlement, by argumentative dispositions, and by disagreeing with the laws of the land. We have reached a point in Nigeria today, people are even questioning the integrity of our courts.
Yes.
This is a highly inflammable and dangerous situation. Just yesterday, or this morning, I was reading on social media somebody accusing the court of undermining or challenging the decision of the court in regards to the Plateau State governorship election. Can't Nigerians give the court the benefit of the doubt and assume that whoever sits on the judgment chair must have a modicum of integrity to be able to pass a judgment that is based on the evidence before him or her. Can't we do that? Can't people agree that every Nigerian who presents himself for election must have the fundamental right to do so, and also must feel beholden to his country before presenting himself or herself for election? I think we have to draw a line to form the baseline of the type of disposition we will bring to politics in Nigeria. Liberia has taught us that you can win and at the same time you can lose without breaking your country apart.
Indeed.
Without undermining the rule of law, without disturbing the peace, and without actually going out to create confusion in the land. What President George Weah did was actually something that is akin to what President Jonathan did. And both of them will be held in high esteem by their citizens and by Africans and the rest of the international community as time goes on.
Indeed. And the president of ECOWAS, you know, there have been so much, from his point of view, and indeed from all Africans' points of view, unfortunate news of the coups, the change of governments by non-democratic means. And so this must be a real beacon of hope. So much so that when President Tinubu was congratulating Liberians, especially when he was congratulating both the incumbent president, President George Weah, and the president-elect, President-elect Joseph Boakai, he also congratulated the people of Liberia and thanked them. He thanked them in his message that was that the president sent. I thank the people of Liberia for peacefully exercising their rights and implore them to remain steadfast in the pursuit of democracy. Now, where this resonates is the fact that in 2017, the incumbent president, George Weah, he actually won by 62% of the vote. Yeah. 62%. And now the people of Liberia have now said that, okay, well, there's so many circumstances. There were allegations of corruption in government, the promise that they had expected, they didn't see, and all of that. But the people now said, fine, from that 62% with which you won, well, this time, we're not giving you more than 49.1%, and the country was not torn apart. So it was in that sense, I imagine, that the president was congratulating all of Liberia, the people who had, it was the people who actually gave this mandate by their votes. And President Weah had actually gone on air and had enjoined all of his supporters to follow his example and support the winner. I mean, it was almost as if, are we still in Africa? Are we still in Africa where people want to badmouth us? Now this has happened.
Yes, I think, for a change, pleasantly, I must say, we have this positive report now. Apart from the very dismal spectacle we have seen in Niger Republic, in Burkina Faso, in Guinea, and in Mali, where military juntas have taken over forcefully.
Yes.
And before then, I must say, where elected presidents wanted to subvert the constitution by introducing tenure elongation that destabilized the system. So on both issues, President Tinubu has spoken against both tenure elongation by supposedly elected presidents who change the constitution to continue, and also military coups by people entrusted to defend the president and the country and the constitution. So it's no surprise that His Excellency President Tinubu has appealed to the sense of patriotism of people, particularly congratulating Liberian people. Democracy is essentially about the people.
Indeed. One moment, I beg your pardon, Your Excellency, I beg your pardon for interrupting you, but let me bring on Mohammed in Abuja who wants to join the program. Good morning to you, Mr. Mohammed.
Good morning, Okliori. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, and then I greet your guest for reminding you that George Weah is not the first to set this example. So for that, I want you to correct that your headline. George Weah is not the first to set the example of calling his winner or his opponent before even the election is concluded. Goodluck Jonathan is the first African leader to call his opponent before even the election was concluded. Even INEC did not even announce the result. He called. But this one, George Weah, he has to wait for their INEC to announce the result. And that only is for that. Then there is a Twitter handle that I used to follow on social media, and he's a full supporter of Peter Obi. He tweeted last 2 days that President Tinubu was rushed to Germany for hospital. I want to remind him that today President Tinubu was live addressing the German Congress that they are doing there. So you should see him in the meeting there, not in the hospital. Please, let's behave well in Nigeria. Let's wish our leaders good every time. Let's pray for our leaders. We should not be wishing people dead every time. That is how some of them did to Buhari, and Buhari is still in the now, shining and progressing. Please, let's be positive in our country every time. We should not be always wishing our leaders bad. Please. That is my advice. Thank you, and have a nice deliberation.
Well, okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed. I think the point you were making is that we should not be selling ourselves short. After all, we shouldn't forget the President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan example as well. But you see, what our caption is simply saying is that, George Weah sets example for Africa. And I don't think you can deny that is indeed what has happened. But thank you very much. Nevertheless, I hear what you are saying. So, Ambassador, well, you heard his interjection that we ourselves, there are times we have set an example. And yeah, I guess you can't wish away President Goodluck Jonathan's example. But in the current climate that you have just been talking about, political climate in Africa, that it didn't go awry. I think that is what we are commending. We're commending the people. We're commending the people of Liberia, whose mandate was allowed to stand. They changed their mandate in 2017. They said that George Weah should go to State House with 62% of the vote, and then now in this one over the weekend, now they said by 49%. They say we're not too happy, and that we now want to try the man that we didn't use the last time around. And yes. So
go on, please.
Yes, so letting the vote speak, and that was probably why President Tinubu congratulated the people of Liberia as well for the peaceful way in which they, conducted the election.
Yes, President Tinubu, as a Democrat, he knows and he realizes that democracy is all about the people, the choice of the people, the decision of the people, the mandate of the people. And if you remember, his electoral mantra was, "On your mandate, I stand." I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was his the campaign slogan of President Tinubu. And the mandate he was referring to is that of the people. And he respects that opinion of the people. And that's why throughout his discussions, his comments, he always appeals to the people for their better sense of judgment. And in the case of Liberia, his address to the people of Liberia, I believe, if I may respectfully recommend, that as chairman of ECOWAS, he should also attend the inauguration of President Boakai and send the same message to the people of Liberia, congratulating them on their patriotism, on their enthusiasm to uphold democracy, and for the peaceful way the transition had taken place. I think that would give a lot of confidence to the people of Liberia and reinforce the strength of the democracy in this country if they see our Nigeria appearing on the same podium with their president-elect being sworn in and delivering a goodwill message for Nigerians. But that will depend on the invitation that he may receive from the government of Nigeria. That said, I think it's very important that, as the speaker Mohammed said,
yes,
Nigeria should not be deprecating and undervaluing their leaders. It has become almost a vogue in Nigeria today, at every instance, to condemn our leaders, to criticize our leaders blindly, to even insult and abuse them. This is not correct and this is not right. They cannot get the change that they desire for if they are not cooperative and if they are not actually wishing and praying well for themselves and for their countries.
All right.
Whoever becomes a leader does not become a leader by his own strengths, by his own machinations, by his own wiles and guides, but first and foremost by the choice and grace of God the Almighty.
Indeed.
It is God who makes leaders. It is God who appoints people and gives people the chance to serve. And if people serve, then they are doing God's bidding to serve well, to hold what is called amana or trust. And if they don't serve, they will be answerable to God because God gave them that trust to hold on his behalf to lead the people to safety and prosperity. So, and the same vein, people should realize that abusing and criticizing their leaders always will actually lead to a condition whereby what they are wishing on the leader will now fall on them.
Indeed, become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
We have to be metaphysical in some of these issues as Africans and people who believe in God and our faith.
Indeed.
So let us rally around, whether it's a local government chairman, whether it's a state governor, whether it's a member of House of Assembly or House of Rep or Senate, whether indeed is the president. Whoever sits in that chair bears a lot of responsibility. And we have to realize that responsibility is carried by him or her on our behalf. Let us be supportive of them, encourage them, and not to really discourage them through incessant complaints, attacks, criticism, vilifications, and abuses.
Okay.
That will not take.
All right, Mr. Ambassador. At this stage, we'll take a pause. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back. Please do stay with us. And as soon as we come back, we'll continue to receive calls into the program. Stay with us, please.
Politics is defined as getting what, where, when, and how. But in the mix, many things come to play to shape the political fortune of any country.
Mr. Honorable Minister, that's how you misinform the public.
From the political actors to the electorate, campaign to voting, from debates to policy decisions, big events happen to engage us in constant conversation.
That's what we're looking for. Not some people who are talking about ethnicity. No.
Who is on your mind?
Don't worry.
Join me every day on Politics Tonight, where we dissect issues that shape our political destiny. Politics Tonight, weekdays on TVC News.
Okay, welcome back, and our guest still is Ambassador Usman Sarki, former Nigerian Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations, and we're looking at the subject is democracy. George Weah sets example for Africa, but it must be said, Mr. Mohammed has called in from Abuja and has taken a bit of an exception to that caption, saying, what about our own President Goodluck Jonathan? In his own time too, he set an example. But this is the narrowest of margins. And incumbent President George Weah went on air and he first of all called his co-contestant, congratulated him, and then invited all of Liberia to follow his example and support and endorse the winner of the election, even if that winner was something like only 1% away from him. Mr. George, good morning to you, sir, and thank you for holding on.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to the top diplomats.
Good morning.
Uncle Yori, the example George Weah has just said is not new, like Mr. Mohammed said. What happens is that the political actors are greedy. That is the reason why they don't accept results. So it depends on the character of the person concerned. Look at President Jonathan, like was already pointed out. He saw that this election he cannot win it and decided to do the needful by calling the winner, even before it was announced. But what happened after he handed over? You can see the litigations upon litigations that have followed subsequent elections in the same country where a sitting president had set that example. Even the recent one, the person who came second said he won. The one who came third said he won. So who is actually the winner out of the two that are contesting? You came third in an election and you said you won, that if you are not sworn in, you will burn the country. Is that from dignity? Is that one from civility? Is that one from fairness? Judge Ware, if I may recall,